What's happening, people? It's Josh from Late Replies. So today I'm going to be taking you through our track Djembe. It came out on Solar towards the back end of 2019. I think it was like November or something like that. And yeah, the track got really good reception. It's one of our favourite tracks that we've made. I think because we've really just tried to keep a real authentic vibe on this in terms of our percussion used and the sound. It was like quite a tribally sounding track, but it was still very tech house roller. If you haven't heard it already, I'm gonna play it through to you now. So if you have heard this already, you know the track well, you've been playing it or whatever, just skip through this next 2 minutes because it's just going to be me playing the track, and then I'll pretty much take you through the track from scratch, exactly how we made it, go through how we built all of the drums, how we did the breakdown, how we laid out the track, everything basically. So let's carry on from, let's say we'll catch it from the build, I think. Cool. And then the rest is just a repeat basically, so I don't need to go through all of that, but yeah, I hope you guys are digging the track. Let's just get this right from the start. So right, okay, so from the off, we have, just to start, we always start with a 4-bar loop to begin with. We usually start with building just the drums first and then kind of write the bass line to the drums. Generally in previously making tracks, we found that is like the easiest way to go, but we have developed some new techniques recently which we'll go through and other tutorials basically to making tracks, maybe, you know, with other things starting first, like maybe the bass line or maybe just a synth or just start with a vocal. But yeah, this one was just the drums. So start with a 4-bar loop. The kick is nice and punchy. I think if you look just for, I mean, I don't think we've done anything to the kick on this. Yeah, we haven't, literally. There's not even a reason for that to be on there, but EQ. But this was from a pack. I'd have to quickly get the name for you now, actually. What is the pack called? More low end. It is from, I remember it was from a Tech House pack. Sample Magic, and it was Tech House, and then it was more, Sample Magic, Tech House kicks, more low end. It was one of the kicks in there. I'll leave it in the comments basically for a sample that I've used for this kick. So if you want it, you can take it and use it, no problem at all. Cool. So starting with a kick, nice and punchy. Generally, we like to go something with a decent bit of bass, as you can see here, like around the 60 hertz. It's, you know, poking up and quite rich in frequencies there. And then we try to just, I don't know how to explain it. It's like we try to go for kicks that sound quite round. This one is got a little bit of top end in it. So if I solo the frequencies over here, you hear there's just like a slight click on them. Be careful with the amount of click in your kicks, because sometimes it can take it away from, I guess, sitting properly with the bass. But yeah, I think this one was just about right for kind of the type of track that we was making. So yeah, tech house track, so it's at 126. I think if we was doing maybe something a bit more minimal or like more skippy beats type, it would be a bit faster, and then maybe the kick would be a bit shorter, but we've kept the tail end of the kick quite long on this one. Cool. So we'll start with just like a short little hat groove that we've got. Cool. So from there, really simple, just literally one on the hi-hats, and then literally just in between each hi-hat, on all of the offbeats, we've got slightly swung extra hi-hat here to create a little shaker groove type thing going on. Now, how we like to kind of build our drums from the off is that we will basically start with the kick and a short hat as well. And then we'll just start to build percussion around it pretty much, and try to leave a clap out and also an open hi-hat, because that's the kind of thing that will glue the whole groove together once the groove is there. So if you can create a good groove without a clap or an open hi-hat, then yeah, once you do put that in, it will all glue together and sound wicked. So I'm going to start soloing off a few bits. If you notice, like some of the sounds that are used, well, yeah, if you notice, a lot of the sounds that are used are like tribal type sounds. I think it's because once we got onto this loop here, which I'll show you in a second, once we got onto that loop there, it was, we kind of decided that it was quite a tribal type loop, so let's just stick going down the tribal route. So a lot of the sounds used are like Afro Tech packs. They're from Tribal House Kit. We got a conga loop. This one is, I believe. There's a conga loop, African Kit, loads of different stuff that are kind of relevant to the type of track that we're making. Yeah, I'll start soloing off bits now. So basically, what we try to do is question answer in our drums. So we will try, and there'll be certain bits that need to be repetitive in your drums to kind of keep it going. So you may need a percussion loop to maybe fill it up a little bit, or you may want to just put some repetitive like MIDI groove in there that's going to come consistently every bar. But then how you get the groovy sort of variation is just by kind of separating things. So we've got, look, there's this sound here, so on the first bar, not on the second, then on the third, not on the fourth, and then that pattern repeats throughout the whole track. You've got this bit here, which is only once every 4 bars. There'll be certain bits that maybe once every, like there you go, that's on the third bar, and it doesn't come for another 4 bars, so that pattern repeats. And once you start getting that, it's really like, to begin with, it's doesn't make much of a difference. And when you start doing it with all of your drums, then like over the course of you building out the drum groove, you start to get a really nice complex groove. So yeah, you can literally just stay on a 4-bar loop. What we'll do is we'll stay on a 4-bar loop. We will not extend it until we know that we've got like a nice sort of rolling groove, and then maybe we'll try and extend it out and see if we can carry it on a little bit, and then maybe go for a bass line. So without further ado, even with that very slight change in the groove in the second bar, but it's literally the exact same thing, but there's that there, and then that one gets taken away in the second bar, and then that repeats. Really slight difference, but makes a difference overall. Don't worry about your sounds overlapping. Like, you can hear that that's kind of overlapping with another sound, but altogether it just sounds like the sound's layered, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. So let me open up Ableton real quick, because to show you this next technique I need Ableton. For all you Ableton users, don't worry, we will be doing tutorials on Ableton as well, but just to show you kind of the technique that we've used to just clean up some of our drums here. Some of you may know it already, but what we'll do is we will basically get a loop. So that's what we've done here. This is before we knew we could just consolidate it and track it into our Logic project, so we've actually exported it. But this loop here, which is kind of giving it the real tribal vibe, unless we've built around this. So that loop there was probably a little bit busier, but we've just cleaned it up with this technique I'm going to show you now. So let me just like show you with this. I need to solo Ableton on here. Where is Ableton? So I basically run Ableton through Logic if I'm producing on Logic. So I can basically audition loops and stuff. It's really important if you're a Logic user. You need to be able to rewire Ableton with Logic. You do that by going to your preferences on Logic, go into audio, down here where it says rewire behavior, you just click live mode, rewire and internal, and then what you do is opening up a auxiliary track on here, create a new one, and it will just come up as one of these yellow ones here on the far right. And then on the input, so that was this, and then on the input we've just selected Ableton Live. There's the input, and then we just turn it up so it balances in the mix of our track, so we can listen to everything in proportion to the mix. So yeah, just a little trick for Logic users. Ableton, if you're on Ableton, don't worry about it. Like, you ain't got nothing to worry about, because Ableton's good with stuff like that. Right, so say if I drag this loop in here, just grab anything, whatever, extend it out. It'll probably sound a bit busy to begin with, but you can just clean it up with this technique. So ooh, that's quite a good loop. I might grab that for later, to be fair. But anyway, if I wanted to just make it a little bit cleaner and shorten some of the transients, make it choppier, perfect for if you're making stuff that's maybe a little bit more minimal and skippy, or at faster paced tracks like 128, 130 as well. You just go down to here, underneath where it says trans, select the arrow going to the right, and then you just start to pull this down and you'll hear it clean up. Literally just, yeah, shortens all the transients and neatens it. Up to you how much you want to do that, basically. But yeah, really important for kind of just cleaning up loops and stuff. Cool, let's get rid of that. moving on swiftly, we did the exact same thing with this loop. This was from our friend Ren Phillips from one of his 3Q audio packs. Highly recommend them, especially like the Terrace Tech House ones. They're just really good for like rolling grooves. We've used them a couple of the loops on some of our tracks previously, but we've really stripped this one down, pulled the transients right down, so it's like completely changed the loop. Another way to make stuff your own, really, because you don't want to be just like using loops that everybody else can get access to and then you can hear it in their music on Beatport and stuff. That's a bit shit. So once you start to get a nice groove there, I reckon we'll probably put in the clap. Glues it all together nicely. There's a nice groove now, so let's just start filling it up a little bit. Found another conga loop there. So like that was probably from auditioning through Ableton, we've heard just a slight bit of that loop that we wanted and just cut it out and put it in the groove, and then we've just like panned one of them slightly left, and then it's every 2 bars as you can see, and then one of them slightly right, just for a bit of width in the mix really. Yeah, cool. And then the open hi-hat to kind of complete it really and keep the energy really high. I always find once I put the open hi-hat in, it just starts to sound like a lot more faster and a lot more energy in the track. So if I can get the energy quite good without the open hi-hat in, when you do put the open hi-hat in, it sounds wicked. So cool. And then there was just this, which we kind of got lucky with. It was from M Power Synth. We got this. They have like a section on there which has got. Oh, hopefully this doesn't crash my thing. Let me not open that, because I don't want it to crash. But there's a section on there basically called like percussive sequences or something like that, and we just held down the note and it gave us this really good tom rhythm. Tom, like what it sounds like toms, it's more of like a synth rhythm, but it really fit with the track. Cool. So for the bass line, we have gone into basically grabbing some toms. This one we've actually written with toms. Good to do if you're trying to stay away from maybe just like, I mean, like we said, we was trying to do like a real tribal vibe. We wanted everything to sound quite authentic, so we wanted like the bass line to sound like drums itself. So we got some toms from Rem Phillips's pack, 3Q Audio, the Terrace Tech House, the first pack. Grab that. It's only like 15 quid or something like that. The toms in there are wicked, and we have basically cut out all the high end. So this is what it sounds like without it. You know what? Let me just solo the bus by itself and get rid of everything else. Yeah. So there's that, but we just felt like we didn't want all that high end stuff that was in there, so we just cut out all of that. Cut it up to about 200 hertz. So it just sounds like nice and subby. And then it's the exact same ones that we used on this one. This is before on Logic, where you could like, basically it's kind of difficult to start pitching like every instrument slightly different on Logic. So what we do is we just create 3 channels. They're all exactly the same tom, but they're just all pitched slightly differently. In terms of like EQing as well, do you know what, actually I'll get onto that in a second. So just here's the bass line, which really just sat well with the percussion. That's what we got off of it basically. So that's the vibe that we caught basically when writing the bass line for this. It was nice to just get a simple sort of like marching rhythm. You can see it, just the 2 toms here, they both sit off the kick, like they bounce off the kick quite nicely, which gives it a good groove. And see, for example, this one is a little bit longer as well than this one, so you've got like a long tom and then a short one, and then 2 long ones afterwards. Cool. So On to the next part here. Yeah, I was going to mention just about EQing. Our general rule with EQing is that, for one, okay, so kick and bass should always be in mono, and your with your drums, my drums personally, I like to keep them all in stereo because I want like the dynamic range with them, not all just coming through the middle, and we just take out at least sort of around up to like 180, 190 like low cut on the drums. So like, what's it here? I think this one we left a little bit of low end in because it had a nice low end to it, but we made the toms work around that. But okay, this one's only at 148, but generally like we would probably have it like around there, just to leave all of that space below. All of our drums, we're leaving all of the space below for the kick and bass basically, and then they obviously create the kick and bass to have space between each other using sidechain. Where was on? We was on 148. Let me not change this project too much. Cool. So yeah, that's what we've done. And then, for example, with hi-hats, we'll try and cut out a fair bit of the bottom end of hi-hats. So what is it on here? We've cut up to about 421 on here. But really, I would usually nowadays, because this is quite an old project, usually I'll probably cut the hi-hats up to there. We just want to leave all of that, kind of leave that lower mid range for like your synths and your percussion as well, like your lower end percussion like snares and stuff like that. So we just get, you only need the high frequencies of hats, do you know what I mean? It sits nicely on the top of the mix. So cool. So yeah, this is the full groove as you've heard it. Cool, so there's the 4 bar. Once we've got that and it's like rolling, sounds cool, all right, now it's time to progress it. Like, in my eyes, the tune is done, because all I need to do is just keep it interesting and just keep new bits coming in and create, obviously, a build up, a drop, maybe find a vocal. But once the groove is the hardest part, so I don't care. Like, I'm not finishing a track if the groove hasn't got me. Do you know what I mean? So me personally, I'll spend ages on just the drums and the bass line, making sure they work. If that 4 bar loop is making me dance, then I'm ready to finish the track. So just continuing it, we try to set up little fills with our drums. So like, let's talk about a mini fill. This is just like a slight mini fill that we've got going on, but it's just a combination of this little sort of like, it sounds like a scratch, like a DJ, like a vinyl scratch, and then a little vocal shot that says yeah that. So that's like the first fill, yeah? That doesn't come again for like another 8 bars. So what we'll do is we'll have a question and answer going between this fill here, and then on the 8 bar, we'll do a much bigger one to sort of set up the next section. So I hope this is not confusing you guys, but we'll try and split up all of our drops. They're all 32 bar drops. We rarely go longer than that, but this is where the drop is. You got 8 bar, that's section 1, yeah? We got section 2 is here, section 3, and section 4, yeah? Now, the groove that I've just showed you and broken down for you carries on throughout. All that will happen is little bits will get added in and little bits will get taken out when we split from section 1 to section 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, for example, yeah? So, cool. End of section 1, I try to do just a little mini fill where we will just put the kick and bass in a bus, and then if I just show you we'll just automate the low end to come out for 1 bar, and then it slams back in, yeah? And then as you can see on the 16 bar, we're halfway through the drop now. We'll try to make something a little bit bigger, like a little mini drop, which I'll get onto in a second, and then there's an 8 bar again. So for this part, we've literally just got like a drum fill hit going on, which I think I've just grabbed it from like I don't know what it was. I think it was like from like a sample, like a loop or something. I just like the sound of this snare, and it works really well on fills. So those 5 is just just sits really nice in the mix, and just keeps the energy going when you've got a roller like this. So and then we've got actually no, I'll get onto the vocal calls in a second, but the vocals is basically just some stuff we've got off Slice, and we tried to we wanted to keep that variating across the whole groove. So we've got 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, and then 1 there, and we wanted to have it sort of chopping and changing every 4 bars rather than 8, like something coming in. So we found something that was kind of similar, Yeah, it's actually like some supposed to be like monkey noises, but they work well in the track anyway. So cool. So we've got the bit here where the low end comes out, and then there's that fill that I just showed you, and then there's a crash, and then that's like you're into the next section. This bit here is like some MIDI. I think it was like from a tribal perk kit pack. Yeah, tribal perk kits, and it was literally just, it kind of signifies the next section. So we've sent it to a bus and put reverb on the bus so we don't lose the attack. And if you're on Ableton, it will be sending it to a return track and then putting reverb on the return track. Chrome reverb works nice for us in Logic. So if you hear it all together, everything that I've just mentioned, it kind of just sets up this ride to come in and sort of signify the next section. And then the ride is just literally kind of just to add on to the hi-hat. It just the reason why we like to use rides is because they sit at that top frequency. Like you can see it's rich at around the 12k mark, which is, we have to do a lot of EQing to try and just tame the harshness of it as well. But yeah, sits around the 12k mark and sits above the hats. I think the hats are usually between sort of like 1 and 4k is where they're quite rich in frequencies. This is above that, so adds just a layer of energy to the track, fills up that air frequency right at the top. So yeah, cool. So or similar sort of thing, just to go back a little bit, but where the track drops, we've got a similar sort of thing to kind of signify that the track has started. Let's go, let's dance type thing. So it stops, if you know the track, you've got the clap, and then you've got this here, which is the exact same drum fill hit, but we've just put it from really quiet up to a bit louder. So in the mix, yeah, it just sounds like kind of like a snare roll after the drop, but it works quite well for this, and that goes into the tribal call. And you've also got this little vocal shot that goes huh, basically. So all three of those together basically is just telling me let's go, like let's dance type thing. So just have a little listen quick how they all work together. Goes off in the club when that tribal call comes in as well. So yeah, this is signifying that next section, for example, as I was mentioning before. And then that section 2 is just a repeat, literally, but with just the rides just in. I think we may have like a couple of, no, there's not even some extra fills and stuff. It's exactly the same. We just got the ride in there, keeps the energy going. And then, as I said, when you get to here, from this part, halfway through, it's kind of like what I want to do is I want to introduce, halfway through the drop, I want to introduce something that hasn't been heard before and keeps the track rolling along nicely. And we need to set that up, so we kind of create like a little mini drop to keep the crowd interested. If you was DJing, you could just slap the filter on for a couple of bars and then slam it back in. But yeah, I like to do it in our tracks as well, so if the DJ forgets, it does it for you. So you've got 2 bars the filter comes on for. And then we've got a bit more to set this up now. So we've got, if you ever look, I think this is from Raw Loops, this pack, Raw Loops drum fills, I believe it's Ludwig drum fills. So that's LUDWIG drum fills, basically. If you can find them on Raw Loops, I think the pack's like a tenner or something like that. But even on Splice Lite, just look for like fills that work like this, like real fills that proper sound like a drum kit, and they always work quite nice on house tracks, I find. But we've set up that filter coming in. So here's the filter here, that is to set it up, and then we've got a much bigger one which we've chopped up a little bit to keep rolling, to really kind of create like a big drum fill, so the crash comes in and then the synth. As well as that, we've also got the Monkey Call again, and then we've got this synth which we got from Chords. It was like a low brass synth and works quite nice. That all of those together, again, it just creates like a little mini drop and allows the synth to come in. And then if you notice, Here we have like another tambourine that comes in, which I'll play to you in a second, but it just replaces the ride. Like we take the ride out, we put the new tambourine in. It's just slight variations. It does the exact same thing. Like the frequencies of this tambourine are exactly the same. They fill up around the same frequencies as the ride, and it doesn't come in straight away. We just kind of sounds like it gets chucked in basically. So listen to it all together. The synth is from Massive, Erosion Scar we used. I think we put the cutoff down a little bit. Yeah, just so we didn't want, like, when we're kind of writing synths to roll with the track, we don't want loads of high frequencies in there because it just kind of stands out and takes away from the groove. So we've got the cutoff really low, so it kind of just sits a little bit back in the mix. And we've sidechained it. We always sidechain most of our drums, so we've just used kickstart in this occasion. There's only a slight sidechain on this, but on most of our drums we will always, unless there's a clap in it, we will put sidechain on it just so it dips, it lets the kick cut through, and it creates like a good groove as well. But yeah, always sidechain all of our drums and all of our bass line and everything, and synths, and even sometimes the vocal, but only slightly. And then yeah, just cut out the low end so it sits above the, you know, see all the bass line and stuff, and then just cut out some of the high end as well. Sometimes I find that the cutoff it's a little bit difficult to control exactly how you want the EQ to sit, so we just put an extra EQ on it afterwards. But yeah, that's Erosion Scar from Massive. Native Instruments, definitely recommend all of the Native Instruments bundles, wicked stuff. As you notice, look, there was only, I think, the only thing that was different was the synth coming in, and then we've got like a little extra drum fill that just gets chucked in there randomly as well, which works with the track as well. Put reverb on it, so try to put sort of the same reverb on all of the fills, so they all kind of sit a little bit back in the mix. Always on a return track as well, but yeah, chroma verb and all of the fills, same reverb, so they all sound like they're coming from the same place and are a little bit gives it its own space in the track basically. So but as you notice, like, it's the exact same thing as we did before, just to separate section 3 and section 4. Remember the sections I was talking about earlier. Taking out the low end and then slamming it back in, and then the exact same technique that we used with the 5 snares in a row, and then the crash, and then that sort of tribal perk kit. All of that signifies the final section, and then we go straight into the build, right? So the build is here. We just straight away try and think of atmosphere. So straight away we've used the exact same synth, but just we could have automated it, but I don't know, we found it easier to just duplicate the channel, don't know why. But look, it's the exact same synth, but we put the cutoff up a little bit this time, so the frequencies are a little bit more just like higher and raise a bit more tension on the build. You know, if this was, we didn't do it on this track, but on other tracks you may want to just like raise the cutoff slightly as it carries on, to let in more high frequencies and help build tension as you may start to bring in stuff like snare rolls or rises or whatever as it goes along. So slightly different to this, right? And then we've also got just some atmosphere stuff that we've grabbed, like, again, just to create this sort of like sort of jungly, sort of tribal sort of feel. Yeah, that fills up the background a little bit. It's just basically like white noise. Sometimes you could just use white noise to fill up the background, to be fair. And then big up Cass, because he found this guy playing the drums, like djembe drums, I think, on YouTube, and just cut it up, and it just sat perfectly with the track. Like, it's just really caught the vibe. Right, so there's that fills up the first 16. Remember, this is a I'll go through the structure in a second, but this is a 32 bar drop. It's the main build up, yeah, so it's a bit longer. So it fills up the first 16, and then into the second 16, all we've done is just, we've got that synth that I was talking about earlier, which is that signifies, okay, cool, now we're going to start properly building for these last 16 bars and building all the tension for the drop, right? So the kick comes away after that, and then we've just got the exact same melody of the synth. Oh, I forgot to mention, with the synth, we've tried to just follow the bass line in terms of the groove. So the bass is going boom, 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 boom. Then we want the synth to sort of go boom, 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 boom. So a little extra choppy, choppy shorter notes, but effectively in a similar groove to what the bass line's actually doing. Now, when it gets to this section here, we're basically trying to create tension. So all I do is I copy the synth and then just brought it on a different synth called Alpha Plan on the same thing, massive, and then brought it just an octave higher. So it instantly, when you do that, I feel like it starts to create tension, and you'll notice that, and we'll go through in other track walkthroughs and stuff. We do that on a lot of our builds. Like, we'll just copy the bass line, put it on a synth, and then just raise the octave and maybe just mess with the cutoff, and it will start to build like tension basically as it goes along. So then we've got this 30-second riser. If you're lucky, maybe one day I'll send this to you guys. And we've got this riser from Max Chapman's percussive tech house pack. You can get that on, I think, Loot Masters or something like that. But yeah, they're both sort of working together, both of them, building tension. And then this guy playing the djembe drums just gets a bit more intense to start building tension. And then we just, into that last bit, we just strip away the drums, and there's another bit that Cass found from YouTube, which is just wicked and perfectly just sets up the drop coming in nicely. Cool, so just quickly play that bit to you so you can hear how the tension's built from this bit. That's it pretty much in terms of the track. It's just a repeat after that, and then an outro. So in terms of structure, I'll quickly go through that with you, and also actually just some mixing techniques. We like to group all of our drums together. We put on solid bus compression from Native Instruments, and then we use the mix glue, which just really brings out the drums a little bit. I'll show you the difference. Let me just highlight this to you real quick. I'll switch it off and on. I don't know if you can hear that. If you've got some good speakers, you should be able to hear that, but it's just brightening them up, and yeah, just makes them a little bit more punchy as well, which I like. Yeah, cool. So in terms of structure, what we've done is we've got a 32 bar intro, right? So how we do it, 32 bar intro. Halfway through that, we start to introduce the bass line, but it's filtered. And then we have, I call this section here from 33 to 49 here, I call this the bass in section. So it's like if I'm mixing, bass comes in, the bass of the other one comes out, bass comes in from this, and this is when you start fading out the other tune that you're playing, if you're thinking like a DJ here. And then by this point here, from 49, the other tune's completely mixed out. That's how I mix. Some people are different. And then we've got the builds. So this is the first builds that you hear from 49 to 65 is 16 bars. Then we have a 32 bar drop, which is the first main drop, which is I just went through for you. And then we have the final big build on this structure here. We'll go through other track structures a little bit later on, but 97 to 129 is our final build, which I just went through, and then we have the final drop, and then we have, maybe I'll kind of just start to build the outro from here. So maybe I'll give them an extra sort of 30 seconds, aka 16 bars. I always kind of do it by seconds, but 16 bars is about 30 seconds. And then we'll start to fade it out, basically. So maybe filtered bass here, and then maybe just the percussion here. And then that's it, pretty much. That's the whole track. That's our track, Djembe. Let me know, drop me a message if you've got any questions. And yeah, I will see you next time for the next tutorial.